Hi, we're outside my favorite spot on the ship, the Medal of Honor Museum. It's sort of like the heart of the ship, because inside this museum are the stories of a lot of American heroes. And in fact, over 3,400 people have received the Medal of Honor since it was first signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln in 1861. Today, in fact, as of Monday, we now have 79 living Medal of Honor recipients. This is the most recent. Staff Sergeant Ty Carter, on this past Monday, he received the Medal of Honor from President Obama, and is the 79th living Medal of Honor recipient. This is the first time we've actually had two living Medal of Honor recipients from the same conflict. And so, join me inside where we're going to talk more about the heroes of our country who went above and beyond the call of duty. Here we are near the display of the youngest recipient to ever receive the Medal of Honor, Willie Johnston. Some books record him as being 12 or 13, but we know that he went into the Union Army from Vermont at the age of 11 with his dad, and would later meet Harry, who is really the storyteller of our new book that's going to be out soon. Harry is the great-grandpa that tells the story. You remember earlier today when I shared with you that many sailors kept journals, wrote letters. Those are the type of things that we are going to concentrate on when you get the book. Actually, Willie and Harry become best friends. This is a picture of Harry, and Harry is a fictitious character that we came up with, and he and Willie go all over America doing all kinds of amazing things, from the Panama Canal to Ellis Island to being there when President Lincoln was assassinated, all different things that you study in your 5th grade history. So, let me share this with you again. This is the previous book we had, and this year he will have his own section. Harry will have a whole book, about 100 pages, full of highlights of history, journals, letters, documented events that actually happened in history, with a bit of fun on the side. Now, the drum here below me is not the actual drum that was Willie's, but it is from that time period. And I don't want to tell you everything about the story, but I will tell you this. You know what a snare drum is today. Well, this was somewhat like a snare drum in the 1860s. And the story goes that Willie, of course, who was very young, he was a musician, a drummer boy, and when everyone else dropped their drums and ran for safety, because a drum weighed quite a bit, he kept his, as he had promised his dad, or his pa as they were called back then. And because of that, he was written up by his commander as doing the honorable thing that he did and showing so much courage and valor at such a young age. Interestingly, you'll never guess who heard about Willie. Abraham Lincoln, as in the President of the United States. And he recommended that Willie receive the Medal of Honor. So at 13 years of age, Willie Johnston will always be the youngest Medal of Honor. Now, I want to take you through the rest of the museum and show you a few other areas. But before I do, this is especially for the girls. Girls, so far in history, there has only been one woman to receive the Medal of Honor. Let's stop there next. All right, ladies, this is the only woman so far in history, though you could change that, to ever have received the Medal of Honor, Dr. Mary Walker. She was a surgeon in the Civil War and actually took care of soldiers on both sides of the war. She received the medal at the time that quite a few people received the medal, and it was decided that too many had been given out, so they took them back. However, Dr. Mary Walker was sort of stubborn. She did not return hers, and in fact, she kept it and wore it everywhere she went. And whenever the president decided that all the people that received the medal would be receiving them back, she still had her, so it wasn't a big thing to her. Now, we're not going to walk through all the different histories in here, but just so you know, This is the Civil War section that I'm standing in. We also have World War I with 3 heroes from each of the wars that we have depicted in here. World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Where we're going to go next is we're going to go to the area where the last 3 recipients are always located so that I can share a little bit of that information with you as we kind of close for today. But you're going to want to come back for more time. So I'll meet you next at the other area. Remember that earlier I showed you the newest member of this distinguished group of Americans, Ty Carter, who on Monday received the Medal of Honor. Now he's still located outside the theater for a few more days, but when they move him in here, he will be placed right in this area. The last 3 recipients before him, however, are behind me here. This is the first Korean War chaplain to receive the Medal of Honor. And though he was deceased when his family received the medal, he has a wonderful, wonderful story. I'm sure that you realize I'm not able to share all the stories with you that I would like to. But again, the Medal of Honor has a website. Many of these stories will be easily located through our own website, www.patriotspoint.org. And also, as the book comes out, some of their stories will be included in the book that I mentioned to you earlier. Over to my left here is Staff Sergeant Clinton Romisha. He received the Medal of Honor, as you can see, just this last February. And in fact, he and Ty Carter, who just received the medal, are both from the same conflict. And this is one of the few times we've ever had 2 living recipients from the same war. Then finally, Specialist Sabo received the Medal of Honor. He was killed in Vietnam. It took him about 42 years to somehow get all the paperwork to surface that they needed. And so his widow, he had been married 2 years when he was sent to Vietnam. His widow and his brother went to the White House, and President Obama presented her husband's medal after all these years. What usually happens as we get a new recipient of the medal is the posters behind me will rotate and Specialist Sabo will be moved off the wall and Ty Carter will be moved on the wall in the center spot. Now before we leave today, I have a couple things I want to share with you. One is, I want to ask you the question, and you may or may not know, but there's been only 1 U.S. president so far to receive the Medal of Honor. Now as you're guessing, think about this. They have to have served in the military, and obviously a president wouldn't give it to himself. So while you're thinking, I'll give you a clue. He served in the shortest war that we've ever had so far. And his favorite, I think this would probably be his favorite saying, was speak softly and carry a big stick. Right. Theodore Roosevelt is the only president so far, and interestingly enough, his son, Theodore Roosevelt Jr., would also later receive the Medal of Honor. Now before we go, I have one last thing to share with you. In a few weeks, at your teacher's decision, I'm going to have one of the ship's archivists with me. Now an archivist is a person that takes care of all of the artifacts and the primary documents and all the really neat things that you have to wear white gloves to touch usually. She's going to join me for a question and answer time. And she's going to let us see some artifacts never seen before. Some of them worn by our enemy in World War II, and some of them worn by our own soldiers. So that'll give you some time to think about that. And before I close, I'd just like to share one final thought with you. You know, we live in a great land, and we have so many wonderful things to see. But this ship, which we've walked a little bit through today, has so much history from World War II even to the current times. And as we like to say on the ship, everywhere we walk, we're walking in the steps of heroes. So we hope that you've enjoyed this time and that we will be able to see you soon, either in your classroom or even better, on our ship. Thank you, and God bless you.